Technocracy is well upon us, and it's not necessarily intentional. It's a ramification of the advancement of technology, that we've created these massive internet-based social platforms where now our culture is being dictated by algorithm. And I do have another video on this where I kind of just ranted crazily about the algorithmic apocalypse, which is upon us. But this is an example of a story. It's from the New York Times. Inside Facebook's secret rulebook for global political speech. Under fire for stirring up distrust and violence, the social network has vowed to police its users, but leaked documents raise serious questions about its approach. There is no right way to handle this, and this is why I think we're facing kind of like a doomsday scenario. To an extent, look, I think humans will exist, we're just going to be really messed up culturally. This is a story about how you can't have a small group of people in Silicon Valley policing speech around the entire planet because they just don't understand how everything functions. We can talk about the algorithms, but the algorithms get things wrong, right? One of the most notable examples I use is there's a poem that is pro-LGBT, but uses the slurs in an artistic way. So Instagram took the post down as hate speech. So the algorithms do, they don't understand context. So once humans realize what happened, they try and fix it. Let's read this story from the New York Times, or it's a long story, so I'll go through it. I want to make some certain points that are terrifying. In a glass conference room at its California headquarters, Facebook is taking on the bonfires of hate and misinformation it has helped fuel across the world, one post at a time. The social network has drawn criticism for undermining democracy, for provoking bloodshed in societies small and large. But for Facebook, it's a business problem. The company, which makes about $5 billion in profit per quarter, has to show that it's serious about removing dangerous content. It must also continue to attract more users from more countries and try to keep them on the site longer. How can Facebook monitor billions of posts per day in over 100 languages, all without disturbing the endless expansion that is core to its business? The company's solution? A network of workers using a maze of PowerPoint slides spelling out what's forbidden. Every other Tuesday morning, several dozen Facebook employees gather over breakfast to come up with the rules, hashing out what the site's 2 billion users should be allowed to say. The guidelines that emerge from these meetings are sent out to 7,500 plus moderators around the world. The closely held rules are extensive, and they make the company a far more powerful arbiter of global speech than has been publicly recognized or acknowledged by the company itself, the New York Times has found. The Times was provided with more than 1,400 pages from the rulebooks by an employee who said he feared the company was exercising too much power with too little oversight and making too many mistakes. Let's talk about the first core problem with what's happening with Facebook. We did not elect Facebook. No one chose these people to write these rules, and we cannot stop them. If our government, look, I'm a social liberal. If our government doesn't come in and regulate what these companies are doing, the future is horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. We know in the past, Facebook moderators were curating the trending tab and removing conservative stories. That is engineering politics in this country. It is dangerous. Admittedly, it was even worse when the algorithms did it, because the algorithms couldn't differentiate between what was real and what wasn't, and a bunch of fake news stories started popping up. But I'll tell you what I'm scared of. I am scared of computers mindlessly just saying, sure, here's what you want, here's what you get. But I'm also scared of individuals who are not elected deciding what the rules are going to be on what I get to say. We have a constitution in this country that guarantees us rights. Facebook is under no obligation to guarantee those rights. So somebody, somewhere, who was never chosen by the people has the authority to dictate what our political speech can and can't be. And this has led to massacres in foreign countries because these employees don't know what they're doing. That is where it gets really scary. They say, an examination of the files reveals numerous gaps, biases, and outright errors as Facebook employees grope for the right answers. They have allowed extremist language to flourish in some countries while censoring mainstream speech in others. I mean, this is a fact. We see it across the board. There are people who post the most insane and dangerous things on Twitter and get away with it. Like Dana Lash, for instance. Someone said something about wanting her kids to be harmed, and Twitter said it's fine. And then the only reason it got fixed was because she's famous and said, everybody make a stink about this. So Twitter went, oops, we'll fix it. These things happen all the time. And then when you get partisans in Silicon Valley, they know about conservative speech and they actively censor it. And this is not a conspiracy theory. Look, it frustrates me when they claim it's not true, but there are stories where it's like Twitter employees state they routinely censor speech. Project Veritas has people on record saying they do this. It happens. Okay, so these problems are serious, and you have to realize it impacts the entire world. The unelected technocrats telling us what we can or can't talk about. It's not a culture war issue. It is a political issue. It is a global issue. They mentioned moderators were once told, for example, to remove fundraising appeals for volcano victims in Indonesia because a co-sponsor of the drive was on their internal banned group, list of banned groups. In Myanmar, a paperwork error allowed a prominent extremist group accused of fomenting genocide to stay on the platform for months. In India, moderators were mistakenly told to take down comments critical of religion. The Facebook employees who meet to set the guidelines, mostly young engineers and lawyers, try to distill highly complex issues into simple yes or no rules. Then the company outsources much of the actual post-by-post moderation to companies that enlist largely unskilled workers, many hired out to call centers. The moderators, at times relying on Google Translate, I kid you not, this is insane, have mere seconds to recall countless rules and apply them to the hundreds of posts that dash across their screens each day. When is a reference to jihad, for example, forbidden? When is a crying laughter emoji a warning sign? Moderators express frustration at rules they say don't always make sense and sometimes require them to leave up posts they fear could lead to violence. You feel like you killed someone by not acting, one said, speaking on the condition of anonymity, because he had signed a non-disclosure agreement. Facebook executives say they are working diligently to rid the platform of dangerous posts. It's not our place to correct people's speech, but we do want to enforce our community standards on our platform, said Sarah Sue, a senior engineer on the newsfeed. When you are in our community, we want to make sure that we're balancing freedom of expression and safety. We have billions of posts every day. We're identifying more and more potential violations using our technical systems, Ms. Bickert said. At that scale, even if you're 99% accurate, you're going to have a lot of mistakes. So they have these really weird slides, right? This one says, when is it support for terrorism? Is martyr a forbidden word? Moderators are given guides to help them. So they point out that Facebook claims they're just guidelines, they're not rules, but the people being hired are told to basically follow these, so they're effectively rules. We have this image, a neutral term, which is not praise, support, or representation of terrorism. So they say, what does possible terrorism terminology means? It's entirely subjective and can't be applied across the board. So this becomes a big problem. Now, admittedly, rules, courts are subjective, but here's the thing. There's no court on Facebook, okay? A court is kind of a third party. You do something, the police claim you did it, you claim you're not guilty. The court says who's right, who's wrong. Now, admittedly, the court has a relationship with police, but you get your lawyer, you challenge the state, and the judge is supposed to be impartial. It's not perfect, it's not. But they try to do a good job, and we create the system to try and interpret the rules and treat people like individuals to an extent while still trying to be fair to the community. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, they don't have these things. So effectively now, public discourse, politics, our speech, what we believe, what we see, what we read, are being dictated by judge, jury, and executioner. Single individuals who can say, you know what, I just don't like you, you're gone. Without choice. We never elected these people. Why do they get to wield this power? In my opinion, they don't, and it's high time we came up with real rules to regulate these companies because they have too much power. Absolutely too much. There's a big difference between like AT&T being a monopoly, right? Communication happens on these phone services, and we say, okay, as a monopoly, you can't tell people they can't use it because it's an essential service. But there's a difference with Facebook. Even if we had 10 different versions of Facebook, you still have to recognize these platforms hold a powerful position in public discourse. I still think they need to be regulated to an extent, and we need to be guaranteed our right to express our ideas. So I don't necessarily they bring up a lot of the same points. I feel like it's kind of repetitive, but they show something like this, right? I don't know what these terms mean necessarily. They say PCs, QPCs, sensitive subsets, non-sensitive subsets. They're effectively creating rules, jargon, and what people can or can't do without restriction. Actually, I'll put it this way. Businesses are inherently authoritarian. They are. They're subject to the whims of like their staff in collective bargaining circumstances. But if you want to work for a company, they are under no obligation, for the most part, to give you what you want. No one elected the CEO for the most part, right? When you get to a public company, yeah, things can change. But in a private business, and even to an extent, some publicly traded companies, no one I don't get to determine who this person is that's making these rules, right? So you're essentially having these massive companies that behave in an authoritarian hierarchy, deciding what is or isn't, and then we are not the customers. Keep in mind, you are not a customer of Facebook, you are the product. They sell you and your information to advertisers. Therefore, they don't care what you think. In fact, Facebook has every incentive to do everything in their power to make you more susceptible to advertising, to manipulate you in this direction. So there's actually, this is really funny. This is where it gets hilarious. Yes, emojis can be hate speech. They say that like a tongue can be sexualized, an eggplant can be, a bomb can be a call to action. So you need to look at what they're saying, and if someone says we need more and then post a bunch of these, you might get banned. But maybe you won't. What if you're talking about Call of Duty? This is where it gets confusing and weird. So we'll just wrap up with their final conclusion. They point out that one page was actually dedicated to what they said was an extremist group, and it was considered fine because they just phrased things in the right way. Imagine if ISIS made a page. I'm not saying they're like ISIS, I don't know who this group is, but imagine if ISIS made a page, and so long as they avoided certain language, they were allowed to function. Like at a certain point, we have to realize, we're in trouble. We really are. So they end by saying, without full understanding of the platform's impact, most policies are just ad hoc responses to problems as they emerge. Employees make a tweak, wait to see what happens, and then tweak it again, as if repairing an airplane mid-flight. In the meantime, the company continues to expand its reach to more users in more countries. One of the reasons why it's hard to talk about is because there is a lack of societal agreement on where this sort of authority should lie. But he said it's hard to figure out what a better alternative is. I'll tell you what needs to happen. It's about time that our politicians actually did something about this, and the American people had a say in what these companies are doing. It's exactly what they said. Society can't decide? Great, well, let's get politics involved. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But let me know what you think. And I'm going to get out of here and go have a chicken sandwich or something. I'll see you guys tomorrow at 4 p.m.